Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about avoiding scams. It seems like there's always some new way that people are trying to get you to pay money or surrender your information online. Join us as we talk about our experiences and what we've learned to watch out for. Let's get started. Listeners, today we're talking about avoiding scams. It seems like there's always some new way that people are trying to get you to pay money or surrender your information online. And we're here today to talk about our experiences with being scammed and what we've learned to watch out for to avoid it happening in the future. Whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Venmo, or other internet sites, it seems there are always things we need to be aware of. And I know, Julie and Mindy, that you guys want to share some personal stories, but it seemed like once I said the word scam out loud, then my phone kept feeding me all these different scams this week. So I felt like I learned about a couple other ones. So to be aware of.
Yes. Oh, like feeding you warnings, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I saw a few too.
Oh my.
So at first we think, okay, well, we're grown adults. We are immune to being scammed. But Julie and Mindy are here to tell you otherwise. So a couple of weeks ago, Julie got on the podcast all flustered because she believed that she had just been scammed. So Julie, why don't you share with us what happened?
First of all, I want to say that our children, if they're listening, are probably laughing at your statement that, oh, we're all grown adults. That's the problem. We're a little too grown, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
People would say it's age related, but I can prove that wrong.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so last week I used my printer to type up notes for the podcast, and for the last two times I hadn't been able to get my printer to connect. It said it was offline. Normally I would say, John, the printer's offline, and then about 10 minutes later it would be on.
Mm-hmm.
So I never really learned how to do that. Well, then I went and looked at the printer, and there was an error code in the little window. And so I Googled, what does that error code mean? And it told me that some drivers might need updating or something. You know, I don't even know what a driver is. So I Google like how to fix these drivers.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the HP website and I tried some of those things and it didn't work. So I just kind of am scrolling through and I'm working on this for 2 days. So it's very frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
And as I'm scrolling through, I get to another site that is not HP. It's called like printershub.com or something. And it tells you it could be one of three things, and they all sounded very reasonable. And I was kind of going through that. And then over to the right, a little chat popped up, like tech support chat.
Mm-hmm.
So granted, I wasn't targeted by them. I sought them out.
Mm-hmm.
But I got on that chat, and the guy kind of had told me everything I'd already read. Like he seemed to know what the problem was. And he said, but I'm going to need to get control of your keyboard, like your screen. Okay. I can't even hardly say that out loud without cringing. Now that I say it, I'm sure people are like, you did what? But I had done that before, like with our financial institution. Like I've done some of those things where people.
Oh yeah. Whenever you call Apple to get help with your computer, they always take control of your screen.
Yeah, and I quickly Googled, like, is this a legitimate tech support thing? And it was, but I still didn't feel good about it. I could hardly understand the guy, it was a strong accent. And so he gets on my screen, and he actually has me click. He just highlights, like he said, okay, go up here, click on this, and I would. And so I knew. I felt like I was in control, but what I learned later was they can just put that screen up and be doing other things that, you're not seeing their screen. So he ran a little diagnostic and he found the problem, and it was kind of what I thought. And then he said, okay, that'll be $99. And immediately I knew this was a scam because I knew that you just downloaded those things. You don't ever pay for them. And then he said something really scary. He said, I'm going to need 30 minutes on your computer. You can hang up and I'll call you back. And I was like, no. I said, I don't want any of this. I need you to get off my screen and I'm done. And he got frustrated with me. So then it's further confirmation that I'm being scammed, because he said, ma'am, if you call Apple, you're not going to get this any cheaper. It's going to be a lot more, blah, 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 blah. And I said, no, thank you. I want you off my computer. I'm done, And then he got angry. And it was like, you need to do this now, the whole rush and this, we just need to get this taken care of, and kind of shutting me down. Like anytime I try to say something. And then I said, close out everything now. And I saw him start to close everything out, and then he hung up. So that's about when I got on the call with you guys. And I was just so scared. So after, on Mindy's advice, I took it to the Geek Squad at Best Buy right after that. And they looked my computer over. He said, I don't think anything happened. He said, generally, they're just wanting money. This kind of sounded like a lazy scammer. Like he could have done a lot more. But once he kind of saw you weren't playing along, he just was done. And he's the little remote access thing that I downloaded so he could get control was called Log Me In. And he said, let's uninstall that, which we did. And just so that they couldn't come back later, maybe, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I felt better. And then that night I called my son-in-law, because he's in IT. So he ran a scan on my computer and found things that could be suspicious. And there was like 3 or 4 things on there. And he said, I don't think these are anything that were related. They're just things that we don't really know what they are. So he swept all those away, got rid of them. And he said, I think you're fine. He said, but, and I felt a little better. He goes, I wish most people were even as savvy as you were to pick up on the fact that it was a scam, because most people would just keep going, And, because if he had wanted information and I'd given him that 30 minutes on my computer, it could have been a lot worse.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was very scary. And I still wake up at night thinking about it.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally think, what if I wake up tomorrow, check my bank account, and the balance is 0? Like that runs through my mind.
I could see why that would be very scary.
And not even because of this scam, just in general. Like, how do I know? Like, there's so much, you don't know what you don't know.
Sure.
Right.
So, yeah. So that was my experience.
Yes.
Oh, Julie.
Yeah.
So about the same time Julie is going through this, my experience was much more enjoyable. And I was not afraid one bit until I was. So I happened to be on Instagram and I see an ad for an online Lulu store. And it's one of those things that I have bought from before. It's a we made too much sale. And it's a Lulu online store. So I follow the Instagram link and I go and I'm like, oh, wow, like these are great prices. I had been looking at this item. So I even used self-control and I kept it at $50 total. And I got 3 items, which as you already can tell,
wow,
those prices are not normal.
Right.
Too good to be true.
3 items for $50. I'm like, let's go. I was so happy about it. It seemed like a legitimate name and everything. It was like Lulu's online store. And so then I get an email confirmation for my purchase, and it's kind of a weird name. It's a weird email address. And I'm like, well, that's kind of odd, but I was still too happy about my purchase. So I didn't follow that thought. So the next morning, Bryce asks me about the charge because it's a very odd name. And he said, like our bank alerted me and said, hey, is this legitimate? And I told him, of course, yes, it is. It was an online store. And so
I'm saving you money, Bryce.
Look what I got.
Listen, I used a lot of self-control, $50. Like that was my total. Because it even said limit 10 items per customer because, you only get to buy so much. I'm like, okay, I'll limit. Well, I just went with 3. But anyways, no, his question about like, is this legitimate? The bank alerted me. Kind of made me think, and I thought back to the name of the email address. So I decided to just Google it in Chrome and say, like, is this, and I wrote out the online store, is this real? Like, is this a scam? And immediately, like all over Facebook, or not Facebook, all over the Google search was, yes, this is a scam. Like they're going to steal your bank account information. And I'm just like, seriously, it was that easy. I could have just Googled it. But looking back, like, so then I had to let Bryce know. He had to let the bank know. We have to get new credit cards. We have to report it. You know, like it changed everything. And I, like Julie, like at that point, like your stomach just falls. You feel completely sick. It's so embarrassing. I was ashamed. I felt so foolish. Bryce is having to deal with this and go do his job. And you know, like, and I have no credit card for a few days. And so I just felt horrible. And it took just Googling, is this a scam, to find out that it was. And so that is my story.
Well, let me ask you this. Did you really get anything and it's just trash, or you didn't even get anything?
This was just last week. Like this happened when yours happened. And so there wouldn't have been enough. So some people online said that they had fallen for the same scam. And really the telltale sign was that there was an extra S in the Lulu online store. It was Lulu's online store.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Okay, it was just one extra letter. And but everyone said, if you get anything at all, it'll be damaged or not the right thing or poor product or something like that. I'm like, I just don't want them to have any of my information. Like, you know, they have to get my address and everything. And so we can block and cancel the card and do all that, but they still got information.
Well, and something Colin said, that's my son-in-law, and I picked his brain a lot while we were on vacation, and he said, unfortunately, once they've been successful, they're going to come back again, because they're like, and they even share the data with other scammers, or if they move on to another company, like your name's kind of out there as, we might want to revisit this person.
Well, okay. So Bryce told me something interesting about this too. Along those same lines, Julie, is you and I both have already kind of touched on it. But the feeling that we both had when you realize you've been scammed, no matter how you've been scammed, the feelings that you have, some of those feelings are embarrassment, foolishness, guilt, shame. And people that feel that and don't report it because they do feel so foolish are highly likely to be scammed again. Because you do feel that way. So some people just want to hide. That's how I felt. I'm like, oh, I wish nobody knew this. You know, like this is so embarrassing. I can't believe I fell for that. But the fact that I did tell someone, the fact that we both sought help, helps try to protect us for future scams.
Yeah, because they worry about elderly people, and I think they probably are targeted more. So maybe it does happen to people that are older because, first of all, they think they might have more money, or more expendable income. Right. And because they tend to be more isolated, they don't have anybody to just ask, hey, what do you think this is? And so, and they don't tell people, and then they could get in too deep before anybody knows.
Right.
But I do think, from everything I read, was that young and old can be victims. It's not something that you're immune to. And when we decided on this topic, I texted 5 or 6 friends and said, do you have a story? And I intentionally texted a young girl, and she did. She had a story. So I kind of felt like, I don't know, made me feel a little better. Like it's not just a sign of old age. It's just that maybe we're targeted more the older we get.
Right.
Even my dad, I was helping them get ready for a trip to England a few weeks ago, and they asked me to come over and like buy tickets in advance and help them download the Uber app and kind of get them set up. And like, they just had a lot of like logistics that they wanted help with. So we'd been buying a lot of tickets and looking at a lot of things online, and he'd been entering his credit card. And normally my parents are very reluctant to enter their credit card into anything. Even if you've gone to the website, they still don't want to enter their credit card. But I think his guard was down because we'd bought so many tickets, and every time we had to enter his card. So he was just kind of, his guard was down. So then the last thing we were going to do is we were going to download the Uber app onto their phones. But my dad has an Android phone, and it's a real old one. Like, I can't really figure out how to work it. So I said, Dad, I'm going to help my mom do it, on her iPhone. But if you want it, how do you download an app on this thing? So he just goes to like Google Uber and just hits the first website that comes up and plows ahead. He like kind of flashes the screen at me. He goes, "Is this it?" And it did say Uber, and I don't know what it should look like on an Android. So I was like, well, it looks like it. But meanwhile, he just starts entering information, entering his credit card. And then he gets so far and it wants like something else. I can't remember why he ended up kind of just like giving up on it. But then when I left and called him back later, he's like, I think that was a scam. He said, then I got another email. I ended up having to call my bank. And it was the first website that popped up, but they must pay money to be the first because they were ahead of even the Uber official website. And so he just clicked on it. All they wanted was like his credit card information. Of course, he gave it. So I'm not sure if he canceled his cards or exactly how that ended up. I think he did have to cancel his card. And I remember feeling like,
right before
darn,
a trip.
Yeah, here he is supposed to be getting ready to leave the country. But it can happen so quickly. Like he was looking for Uber, and instead of like making sure that that was the real website, he just, clicked on the first thing. And I don't think that people are always aware that the first one isn't necessarily the legitimate one.
Right. And Colin said that those companies pay for advertising so that they come up near the top and right alongside very legitimate tech support or whatever, and that they even invest in fake reviews. So it's like, okay, how are we supposed to trust anything? But, just getting into the habit or having the bad habit of clicking on the first thing is dangerous. He was saying that a lot of times, like with Lulu's, it's one letter off. Like Microsoft, they might put a 0 for the O. Very subtle differences that on first glance, it looks exactly like the real site.
Right. Other places that you can be scammed, we all love Venmo. I love Venmo. It makes life so much easier for reimbursing people within a family, buying things on Facebook Marketplace. But I was reading, of course, a scam popped up that someone can download Venmo money into your account, and then they can send you a message right away saying, oh, can you please refund that? That was a mistake. And being a nice person, you want to refund it. But what'll happen is that the money they gave you will just disappear, but the money you gave them back is just going straight into their account. Like somehow, like don't do that unless it's your friend and you know them. Don't just take a stranger's word for it that this was a mistake. Because there's other ways I think that they could go about getting their money back from Venmo. But it's so easy. We're just so conditioned to be nice. And it would be so easy to say, oh, sure, I just saw $220 pop up. That's not mine. I'll just send you $220. Well, yours is real and theirs is fake.
Right. Yeah. And you can see how you might do that yourself. Like that's an easy mistake to get the decimal wrong or whatever. And so, it's scary.
Yeah. Even my daughter-in-law, who's a young adult, she loves to shop on Facebook Marketplace, and she wanted a piece of furniture. And the lady said, the lady in quotes said, okay, I need $100 to hold it. And Maddie thought, oh, well, that's pretty reasonable. So she thought, I give people money all the time to hold things, so I'll just do that. Then there was something about the transaction that got her worried afterwards. And I think the thing was that this person, and I don't even know if it was a group of people or what, they go around and they collect a bunch of download or, like holding money from people, but there never really is any real product. So, she was able to get her money back through Venmo. She called them. I think it was even on a Saturday, and there was somebody to help, which is unbelievable. And she thought for sure she'd never see that $100 again, but they did put it back in her account. So that was really good.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
It's great. I'll say, even my son, when I was scammed, this has been probably 5 to 7 years ago this happened, but I remembered it when I was preparing for this podcast today. He was playing like an online game, and somehow there was a pop-up, and he was young, and basically it was this pop-up that said, hey, like I found a credit card, and whoever wants to spend money off of it, here's the number or whatever, and you can buy all this product. Well, my kid was like, cha-ching, like there's some things I want.
Right.
And so, and it's, it said he just had to put in a credit card to verify that he was a real person or something like that.
Oh my goodness.
So we caught him, but he was about to charge it up. And it was scary. Like Bryce and I remember him and I being so terrified at what could have happened with our kid, not understanding what was happening and thinking like he's just playing a video game and there's this pop-up and he follows it. And it's just really, really terrifying to think how even our kids through playing games online can be scammed.
Wish I understood this better to explain, because I feel like I don't want our whole episode to just be scaring people. I hope that we have some how you can prevent this information too. Yeah. But John and I were setting up our new TV at the new house, and you know how you have to sign into Netflix and Prime and all again on a new TV. And we were wanting to watch something right then. And so it was taking a long time, and John wasn't himself. He wasn't feeling good. And he was like, oh, let's just hurry up. Like, let's just get this going. You know, I'm not going to be awake much longer. Right. So, you know how when you sign in, you can either go to the website or scan the QR code. Well, I scanned the QR code that was on the television screen, and somehow I get a text that leads me to an imposter website. And I still, to this day, don't know how that happened. Like, how would the QR code get corrupted on the screen? Unless there was some kind of hack that when that code was scanned, it triggered some kind of false text. But I got this text, clicked on it. I mean, because I was expecting a text. And it said that I needed to update to Amazon Premium. Well, I thought, I've never heard of Amazon Premium. We're already paying $100 and something a year, you know.
Right.
But I said, this doesn't sound right, but it all looked so legitimate. And John goes, just do it. Hurry up. I want to watch this show, which is so not like him. So I felt pressure from him, you know, and I had an uneasy feeling the whole time. And I think it wasn't much money. It was like $40, you know, so when it's not like an extravagant amount, you kind of think, well, surely they'd want to steal more from me than that, you know? So I think I ended up talking to this person, and I just kept saying I didn't understand. And he just got kind of frustrated with me and kind of talked me into it, gave him the credit card number, and then I get a receipt. Well, it was like yours. It was like, this is not from Amazon. Why would they even bother with the receipt? You know, it made no sense. I looked it up, scam, and I called Amazon and reported it, and they thought that was very interesting. And I was able to get my money back. And I think I just called the credit card company and said to stop payment, and they did. And, you know, but that was really weird. So when I talked to Amazon, they just said, no transactions with Amazon will ever occur by phone or text. It's always on your account. You sign in and you see everything right there. That's the only way you should deal with Amazon is through your account.
Right.
You know, because I know that's a big scam, is like you get an email and you're supposed to verify your order, or that's kind of a common one that's going around, like verifying a delivery or something like that.
Yeah. I know one that I feel like happened to me, but I didn't fall for it. Well, I don't know. I've read about it that they try to get you to say the word yes when they call. So they called last week and they said, is Marie Perigo there? And I said, this is she. And then the person said, oh, this is, the line's a little crackly. Can you confirm that it's you? I think expecting me to say yes. And I just hung up. But like they use that yes of yours then to order other things.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's always a new scam to be watching out for.
I know. When I texted a friend this, she didn't have anything personally, but she said that last week she was watching, I think it was the Megyn Kelly show, which I think might be a YouTube show. I don't know. But it was Fraud Alert Week. And she sent me 2 videos. So I watched them. And this was a scam that Megyn Kelly's family personally experienced. And it happened in late 2020 or 21. And she said, we have never shared this with anyone because it's so embarrassing. And, you think, okay, this is a woman who is highly educated. Her husband is highly educated. They probably live in Manhattan and, like they're tech savvy. I mean, she's on a national news station and now that this scam has become more known, but I think at that time it was probably just starting. Her mother-in-law got a call from who she thought was her daughter saying she had been in a car wreck and she'd broken her nose. So that's why her voice sounded funny. And that they had put her in jail for drunk driving and that she needed bail money. And it was like $17,000,
Oh my goodness.
I mean, like now, I would totally hang up on that call, but they went on for hours with this person because the mother-in-law then called Megan and her husband and got them involved. It turns out, nobody ever thought to call the phone number of the daughter to see if she was just sitting at home like she was,
Right.
So anyway, they got a lot of other people involved and it took a long time to figure it out. And finally, I think they figured it out because they asked something about what town they were in, because this was on Cape Cod. And they said Barnstable, and everybody in that area calls it Barnstable. And so that was their clue, like, okay, you don't live, like that's not, but the whole, they asked the mother-in-law, like, why did you believe that? And they said, because I believed it was her voice. She was crying and sobbing. And so I have heard that again happen. This came on my Instagram as a warning, similar story, but somebody they needed somebody on the other end to pay a tow truck. And this was using AI. So it was identical to her voice. Yeah, there was no question it was her voice. So even though she was skeptical of why she needed to pay, when you hear somebody's voice that you care about in trouble, you're not just going to hang up probably,
Right. Well, that's what Bryce and I were talking about, how AI, he was just telling me that there was a news story that, like they can use one of your kids' voices and call you and even just verify insurance information or bank information, like, especially if you have an adult child that's still on your insurance, that's a very legitimate phone call.
Yeah.
And so being able to ask more questions, of that to try to see if it's a scam, that's scary though, to think that you're hearing your kid's voice on the phone.
I understand maybe if your voice had been recorded somewhere, but how is it finding my kid's voice and then generating new sentences?
I don't know. It could be from phone calls or I don't know.
Yeah. It would have to be recorded.
Yeah.
I think, that's just too far. That's just too extreme. That could never happen. But I don't know enough to know that it couldn't happen.
Julie, I think it was you that sent that to Mindy and I about the AI thing. And then when I was reading the comments, some people got really super scary phone calls, like their kids being held hostage and they need money. Like, in that moment, your first instinct is to save your kid, not to think, let me call my kid and see if they're okay. Because you can hear your kid's voice in the background. Mom, I need,
they're crying. And, yeah. Okay, I do know an answer for this one, though. And this is something we did for kind of child safety back when our kids were little. Somebody told us you should always have a family password. And they said that would kind of fix this. You could just say, what's the family password? And and I remember we picked a really funny phrase, and we still laugh about the phrase that we picked. So I know our kids would never forget it.
Yeah.
Well, I have one more I want to tell you guys about, because this just came in the mail. I told you guys Jacob's going to UGA and we're doing all the, the housing and the dorm, the meal plan and all that. Well, so we got a magazine in the mail. I'm just going to show you just for fun. And it's just all about dorm life and everything. Well, one of the pages in the magazine it's titled Buyer Beware. And it's all the different ways your student can possibly be scammed through their UGA email address, because and they tell you like safeguards, what to watch for, never pay in cash. Like, it is a whole page dedicated to scams that can happen now that they have a UGA email address, basically. And so they give like, this is how you know it's from us. We can't protect you from all the different vendors that are going to try to like rent you a fridge or a microwave or, things like that. But if it's from us, this is the only place we rent from. So I thought that was quite telling that
good information,
preparing for living on campus, beware.
Yeah, those college email addresses are locked down because my daughters are away this summer and they don't have access to their computer or their phone, but they have to pay their tuition. And the bill wasn't out before they left. So Lauren was like, Mom, you need to pay my tuition. I said, okay, just write down your account and the password and Dad will get on the date. We'll take care of it. No, Mom, that's going to have to be a day that I have my phone and I'm going to have to call and Dad's going to have to be there. And then they send you a code and then you're going to have to enter that. And then they send me a code. It's got like 2 or 3 steps to verify that you're the person. And so even if I had her login information, I can't get on because there's all these like 2-step verification things that come to your phone. You can't just get on.
Well, listen to this sentence on the UGA, the Buyer Beware article. This sentence is written, Georgia's open records laws require UGA to provide mailing addresses to any outside party that submits a request for the information. I'm like, what?
That doesn't seem right.
Georgia open record laws?
That's basically just a gift to junk mail.
Yeah. They're contributing to the problem.
But that's the reason they had to write this article and use a whole page to make sure students are aware.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
And that's scary to know your teen, young adult has got to add this to everything that they're looking out for in college.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is not exactly a scam, but this also happened to me recently. And I kind of got burned by this practice. I noticed on my credit card bill, I had been paying for Netflix double. Like each month I got a charge and it was for 2 different billing dates, like the 3rd of the month and the 10th. And so it was kind of hard to track down why it was happening, how it was happening. And it turns out one of them was from our very first Netflix account, probably when Netflix first, when we first signed on, because it was Andrew's email address, like that he used in high school.
Whoa.
But it was our credit card, we were paying for it. And that card had expired. So I know I have done this in the past. I have let an expired card be my way to cancel a subscription.
Right.
Not anymore. I Googled this and this is what Netflix told me. No, we will still continue to extract the payment any way we can. And your bank gives them the new information. What? And they do not share that with you. So they had given them, the new credit card and it was being charged.
That's
and
terrible.
Then we had signed up under our email the next time. So it looked like 2 different accounts, but the same person was paying for it. So I really hate to think of how many years that's been happening. But now that I'm taking over the bill paying, I'm like looking at everything like eagle eyes.
Yes.
And so I got them to credit me this whole year for that, but they couldn't go back any further. But they said that is not an acceptable way to cancel a subscription, that they will continue to get the payment.
Who can even remember all these things that we subscribe to with our credit cards?
You have to have records upon records.
Yes.
I know, Marie, you have mentioned before not wanting to give your passwords to your kids, where they're like, what's the Netflix password or what's the Amazon password? And so I know Bryce keeps ours really locked down. He I'm telling you this, but don't tell anybody else. And so when the kids are begging for it, we're like, bring me your device and we'll sign in. But it's just too easy. And he keeps an Excel spreadsheet on all the passwords that he has. He's really good about that. Whereas opposed to me, I'm like, I've got maybe 3. And so anytime a password runs out, I'm like, okay, it's one of the 3.
Yes.
That is not a good way to do it.
No, because that's one of the things that Colin and I talked about. And I wanted to share this because you know how when you make a password, it'll kind of tell you how secure it is or how strong it is.
Yes.
Well, this kind of uses a lot of math, and you don't have to understand the math because I don't really either. But he said a password that's just 4 characters, a computer or a bot can guess that very, very quickly. Because there's with 4 characters, there's 10,000 possibilities. Well, a computer can just run through that and get it really quickly. So you think, okay, I'm going to add caps, symbols, lowercase, punctuation, all that. And he said that really does increase the strength. But he said that strength is really not worth it if you can't remember the password. Because that's why people do the same password for everything. They're like, oh, I can't remember that. Mm-hmm. So he said the best way, he said, that he likes to recommend is like to pick 4 words, like even 4 4-letter words, like boat, lake, wind, water. I mean, that's 5 letters, but 4 words, and just run them all together, even without adding capitals. Just the fact that you have 16 characters, that makes it like in the sextillion possibilities.
Oh,
really?
Like each time you add, going to 8 characters, then 16, it just makes it that much harder, the sheer length of it. Now, it's probably a good idea to add a capital, because sometimes they make you add a symbol or a capital anyway. But he said when you are constantly resetting your passwords, like in portals, and that there is a way that you are susceptible to scammers doing that. So he said that's not a good habit to get into, of just, I'll reset it or whatever, that you're kind of opening yourself up. So it's better to have passwords you can remember. He said we've been trained to develop these passwords that humans can't remember very easily, but computers can break very easily, which I thought that was interesting.
Right.
And you never use the same password, because I remember when I first switched over to Google Chrome, it would said, warning, you have 15 passwords that are the same. And my kids are just rolling their eye like,
right.
Because if there's a data breach, it's going to affect everything you've got, like that's the reason you don't do that. And that was actually when I emailed my young friend, she said that was her mistake, was she had all the same passwords and there was a data breach and somebody got into her email, and she said they were even emailing like friends of hers from her email. Like she said it was just so embarrassing.
Well, I don't understand. It's not helpful to me though, if I have to have, even if they are a password I can remember, how am I going to remember which password for which account?
Would you not save them?
Well, yeah, but sometimes your phone doesn't remember, or you're trying to log in on a computer and not your phone, or you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's the other thing that I started to do is Bitwarden is a password manager. And so you have one like 25 character password that you have to remember, and then all your passwords are stored in that. And Colin said that's what they actually have to use at work. Like they're required to use that. And so I have started entering, I've got 2 or 3 in Bitwarden now. It just takes a while to go back and change them all. Because, I do have all different passwords now, but you're right. And I do have them written down somewhere, and I do save them. But then that scares me. It's like, is it safe to save them? I don't know.
Right. Plus, I could have the same password forever if I was only using my device and I lived in a bubble. But my kids will have to have me log in on their computer and it's not saved on there. Or they'll be like, oh, I need to order something from such and such. What's your password? And they're always like, what's your password? As if I know it off the top of my head. And if I try to log in my phone, it's like 10 little dots. I don't know what those dots mean. It's already entered. And I do not want to change it. So passwords are a point of pain for me.
Well, and multi-factor authentication, that's after my Amazon scam. I went to that for sure. And he said, that's a must. And he said, people complain about it because it adds 45 seconds every time you have to sign in. But it really should give you peace of mind that you're protecting a lot with that 45-second delay.
Yeah. Well, that's what we've all mentioned, is that like patience is a virtue here, and preventing against scam. Because I know we do have some helpful hints, and that's one of them. Is just we've talked about rushing into something, or not being patient, or not taking the time to check or verify, or just adding that moment, that breath to kind of check on your kid, or Google is this legit?
Well, and that's kind of one of the red flags that we could talk about, was they kind of prey on this needs to be done right now. This needs to be done in a hurry. You won't have this chance later. They do kind of pressure you into doing things quickly before you have time to figure out what's going on, or to really think about it, So he said, anytime you just have an uneasy feeling, trust it. Trust the uneasy feeling. You can always figure it out later, call back. You don't have to do it right now.
Right.
And anytime someone's trying to be so extremely helpful, offering to help you or even asking for your help, he said, that's, you want to be nice, you want to be kind, but that's usually a red flag too.
Right.
Helpful hint would be to really keep a close eye on your bank account and maybe your credit card statement. I mean, that may seem like a very obvious thing to most people, but I mean, whether John did that or not, I know I wasn't ever doing it. So I'm having to learn not only how to pay the bills and keep up, now I'm having to learn how to not be scammed, all at the same time. So it's a little overwhelming. And I had a friend that I asked, how she maybe had been scammed. And she said she got a notice, or she noticed that $3,000 worth of electronics had been bought at Costco on her debit card. So that means they had her Costco number and her debit card number. And she said, I have no idea how that happened. And she said, then she called Costco and they said they had received an email to say that per her request, she wanted her Costco account deleted. And they did.
What?
And she said, it was very bizarre. She said, it took her weeks to kind of figure out. And she said, I still don't know like how this benefited the scammer, because she said later, I start getting emails saying, we don't know where to deliver your TVs. And they wanted her to verify the address. And she said it was a mishmash of like her street number, a different street, a Colorado address with her zip code, like, total nonsense.
Oh, wow.
And she said it was actually hard to kind of like tell them, I didn't order these TVs. I don't want these TVs. I think they even tried to give her a refund. And she was like, I never bought these TVs. Like I didn't pay for them. She said she felt like she was helping out Costco's fraud department more than she was herself. And I said, well, what do you think the scam was? And she said she never could figure it out. And she jokingly said, maybe it was a test, like a training center for hackers. And this guy failed.
Oh my goodness.
Like he didn't do a very good job.
Yeah.
But,
wow.
yeah, sometimes my brain doesn't think like a criminal, so I can't even figure out what they're trying to get,
Right.
So I think just watching your bank account, so the first thing that goes wrong, you can stop it.
Right. I know we've already said this, but if it seems too good to be true, it probably is, and verify that. I know one of the things that both my son and my husband said is if it's trying to send you to a second website to finish what you've started, don't go. Don't go to a second location.
Right. That's so good.
Yes, I know Colin mentioned this, but also just the sponsored link at the top. If you Google something, how to do something, don't necessarily go to the sponsored link. Go to the official website. Look to make sure the name is spelled correctly and there's no extra letters or numbers. And then one of the things also is, I know I've struggled with this, and this isn't a scam, but third-party sites in general, you can end up just paying more for something that you really could get for free. So I'm talking government websites. I don't know if you guys have dealt with this, but anytime, yes, they are the worst.
The National Park Service, you're trying to make reservations, and they have a website that you think it's the National Park Service, but it's not. It's a third party.
No. There's a passport. Anytime I've tried to go to get passports or renew passports, there's a third party company that will help you do it.
Yeah.
But you pay extra for them to help you do what you could do for just the passport price. Well, those are official government site.
So those are probably a .com, not a .gov.
So that's the thing, is just kind of watching. And Bryce said that most government sites now have something at the top that makes sure that you can tell that it's the official site, not a third party help you site, because they look so similar.
Yeah, they really do.
Yeah.
So I know when we moved to Pennsylvania, our taxes, just all of that were different, and they have some different tax structures there because they have boroughs. They have, some different names for who you're paying taxes for. And so it was confusing to us because we hadn't dealt with that before. But there was a third-party company that basically was trying to help us pay our taxes, but also you pay them to pay your taxes. And we were like, so it took Bryce. He said it was actually very confusing at first. And then I figured out, like, this isn't an official government site. This is a third-party site.
Yeah. Scary. Well, one thing Colin told me and the Geek Squad guy told me was if you're having a technical problem that you need something fixed, like especially with your computer or, he said your best bet is to go to YouTube and just look for a video of how to fix it.
Really?
Or call a young family member that you trust.
Oh.
Like start there. Don't start Googling the solution. And, I want to tell you, last night I realized, I still don't have my printer fixed and I needed it. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to Google YouTube, how to fix this error code. Y'all, I was so proud of myself. Within 5 minutes, my printer was fixed.
Oh,
are you
great,
serious?
Julie.
It was online again. And the error code just went away. I did not need new drivers. I did not need a download. It was really bizarre. I would have never figured this out. It was like I had to print an info page off, on the computer. I mean, on the printer. And then I had to go to the printer website, enter some numbers on that. It was very bizarre. Change a setting, and they said your error code won't pop up anymore. I mean, it was so easy.
Right.
And
that's great.
So that was, So I think that's really good advice.
Yeah,
it is. I'll say lesson learned from my Instagram, the Lulu's online store, is I felt safe because it was on Instagram. Like I felt like I could follow a link on Instagram, but obviously I don't feel safe doing that anymore. I will never again click a link on there to shop at an online store. I'll just type in the online store.
That's
myself.
what I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I learned. I was completely bamboozled. I had no idea that was, I felt safe with it.
Yeah.
Because Mindy, that's how I got my fake cork shoes,
Oh, right.
As I went right through the link on Instagram instead of typing it in.
Okay. Well, there are tons of ways that we can be scammed, but hopefully listeners, we've given you some things to look out for this week, and we would love to hear your stories, either words of warning for us or scams that you've fallen for or other tips that you want us to be aware of. You can find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or you can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. But before we go, we want to do I'm a Fan. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
I'm a fan of a product I bought in a store all by myself. And it's legitimate. They are my new go-to sandals for the summer. They are by Reef, and they're called the Cushion Vista High. My daughter assured me that they did not look old. They're actually very adorable. They're comfortable, and I can't believe I waited so long to purchase them. I actually wanted a version of these like 2.5 years ago, and I just didn't buy them. They're a little pricier, but now, I mean, they go with everything. I can wear them with jeans, shorts, linen pants, dresses. And like I said, they're very comfortable. And so it's just my go-to shoe for the summer.
Oh, that's great, Mindy. I've been looking at those. I feel like I might have saw them on a website that like viral shoes this summer or something. And I thought about them.
They are really cute.
I love them.
Yeah, I'll definitely put a link for those in our show notes. All right, Julie, what are you a fan of this week?
All right, I'm a fan of a book, and it's called A Grace Disguised, How the Soul Grows Through Loss. Now, I know I said I was going to give up this kind of book for the summer, and I am reading fun stuff, but I'm still reading this kind of stuff. I heard the author on a podcast, and so I just had to get the book. The author is Jerry Sitzer, and he lost his wife, mother, and daughter instantly in a car wreck. That he was in the car and was left with 2 other children to raise. And he was young, and so I think this book comes several years after, and then it's been reprinted. So now it's about 20 years after. So it's actually a very inspiring book. It's not depressing. It's very inspiring. So if you have suffered a big loss, I would highly recommend this book. You can get it on Amazon. I'll put the link.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's a good one to share, Julie. All right, this week I am a fan of something that really saved my car a couple weeks ago. So I was at my daughter's in Nashville, and Clara got sprayed by a skunk in her yard at like 4:45 in the afternoon. You're just not expecting that. Like, it's not even remotely dark. Well, apparently there was a mom and a nest of babies living under her deck, and Clara, with her nose, was out there sniffing and got sprayed. Well, that's like 30 minutes from my house, and they didn't really have anything that I could clean her with. Like, I have skunk shampoo here, and because she got sprayed last summer, so I kind of had this stuff here, but I'm thinking, if I put her in my car, it's never going to smell the same again.
Right.
But I just didn't have a choice. There was no way to get her home. So I just want to recommend this. Since I bought my car about a year and a half ago, I've had this like car seat protector, and it basically protects the whole back side of the front and passenger seat, the whole seat of the second row, and then all the way up the back. And it's got like a waterproof barrier, and it's great. But I'm telling you, it's actually awesome. So even if your dog has not been sprayed by a skunk, like say you have a puppy or you have, like I even put the car seats in there and I keep that pad so that if the kids are, having something that's messy back there, it's going to get on the car seat protector, but it's not going to actually get on my seats. Mm-hmm. Because when I put Clara in the car, she was still throwing herself around because that stuff burns their mouth and their eyes. Mm-hmm. And she was trying to rub everywhere, trying to get that off. That would have been rubbed all over my leather seats. So I had to go home with the sunroof open, all the windows down, 30 minutes. And I pull in the driveway. I'm like, oh, my car is never going to smell the same. I immediately took her out, took the whole car seat whole car seat cover, shoved it in a big lawn and leaf bag and put it in the garbage. I'm like, that thing has skunk oil all over it. We need to never see it again. And I am telling you, I left my car with just the windows down in the garage for a couple days. I have not smelled 1 ounce of skunk in there.
Wow. What?
And that's what they say. Like when your dog is sprayed by a skunk, the first thing you should do is wipe them all over like with an old sheet or old towel. Don't get it wet. Like first try to get all the oil off. And so that's basically what that car protector was doing, was absorbing all that oil instead of my seats of my car, which would have never smelled the same ever.
Wow.
So I'm going to put a link for that on Amazon. It's less than $30. Imagine even if I had to get my car detailed after that to try to get skunk smell out, and it probably still would never smell the same. Like, much better to have the protector and just toss it and order a new one.
Yeah, they probably would just cover the smell. It wouldn't really get rid of it. Yeah.
No, yeah. So if you have pets, like think of even if you just took your dog to the park and they get all muddy, like it's just such an awesome thing. In my old car, I used to just have towels on the seats. They don't do enough. You need the wraparound. So anyways, I will put a link in our show notes.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been interested in one of those anyway. Just when I take Charlie somewhere, I just don't like him on my seat. So I'd like to see what kind you bought.
Yeah. And I have had experience. It even protects from skunk.
What a lifesaver. I am so impressed. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Not that I'll ever need that. But...
You never say never, Mindy. You never
don't know.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for talking about scams today. Hopefully this has been helpful for listeners. And, let's not be embarrassed if we fall for one in the future. Let's share what we learned.
That's right.
Yeah,
this was
hopefully
great.
it'll help somebody else.
I hope so.
Be aware.
Yes. All right. We'll talk to you guys next week.
Sounds great.
Okay. Bye. We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.